Hey everybody, how's it going? Christian from Treasure Town here, and I'm super excited to share today with you a complete history of our dollar coin. Now, these are the base unit. It's a really historic, symbolic coin, and a lot of them are well collected, but we're going to be starting all the way back with the very first flown hair half dollar. Little spoiler, started 1794, making our way up through the ages. We'll be hitting the Morgan piece dollars as well as the smaller clad dollars, so we'll go all the way up until the present, where we have a variety of circulating gold dollars. But we'll start at the back. We'll talk about errors, varieties, values, and specific information about each coin along the way. So let's get into the presentation. I've talked over it and I have it ready to go. And here we have it, the very first ever US dollar design. And that's the flowing hair dollar, 1794 to 1795. So it's very short lived. And there's only 200 survivors left today of the first year's dollars. 1795, not quite as rare. But the 1795 had three primary types. There was a 2 leaves, 3 leaves, and silver plug. And the reason that they would put a silver plug on some of the coins is that and there's one on 1794 that's extremely rare, and that's to correct the weight of potentially underweight planchets. So they were trying to make these so that they could be used in circulation for their silver value, and they needed to have all of them at the same weight. Now, each of the 4 types discussed has a lot more die varieties and are categorized in the Overton numbers, and we're not going to talk exactly about those, but there were 15 stars that commemorated the states that had ratified the Constitution at this point, and originally they were going to use a 0.892 silver standard as the purity, but that eventually shifted, and that was what was used as 0.900, so 90% silver was the composition of these coins. Very circulated, which is about a good 4, was about a $2,000 coin on the 1795, lightly circulated 10,000, which is like an XF40, and uncirculated 400,000. When I use the values, they're not for specific rarities, they're more for the least expensive of each type. The next one that we'll move to is the 1795 to 1798 Draped bust dollar, and on the back there was a small eagle here. And while the bust designs were really short-lived on the dollar, they'd be mainstays in some of the other denominations' early 19th century appearances. And the Draped bust and small eagle combo might be the scarcest type of dollar of any coin. The prices are roughly the same on all 4 coins, but the 1797 is the scarcest of all. And all of these were made for utilitarian purposes, so there was no attention paid to them in terms of being careful with the strikes. Like before, lots of different styles, variations in the size of the date, letters, and the placements of the stars, in addition to those Overton varieties. Values are about 1,500 for really circulated, 7,000 for lightly circulated, and uncirculated in the 60, so not the 65. It's about a $150,000 coin. As we move along, we get to the heraldic eagle, which is a different type of Draped bust dollar with a similar obverse, but very different reverse based off of the Great Seal of the United States. And outside of a tough-to-find variety from 1799, all of the stars are standardized to 7 left of the bust and 6 on the right of the bust. And 1801 to 1803 are the scarcer dates, but are not super rare, and some of the coins were produced in 1804, but backdated to 1801, 1802, or 1803. There's tons of different varieties, and there's too many to get through here, and then the 1804 dollars, and often those were produced much later, are the most scarce of any coin probably in existence. I think that there was even a bid in the 10 million plus range for one of them, but it didn't meet the reserve, so it didn't sell. Would have been the most expensive coin to ever have sold, but the 1804 is a super significant coin, but it's not really included in these because it wasn't really supposed to happen. Then we skip ahead a long time to 1836, which is when the Gobrecht dollar, Gobrecht Flying Eagle dollar, was first made. These are very expensive and quite popular with collectors. There were a significant number of restrikes, meaning that they were struck well after the fact and backdated, and were considered pattern coins for a long time, meaning that they weren't supposed to be in circulation until there's some evidence that they were actually placed into commerce at the time, so some of them are considered regular issues. The restrikes are almost always proof, while the original ones aren't. There's a lot of complicated debates about the different types of alignments. There's like a coin alignment, metal alignment. There's tons of it's not really super clear what the picture is, and it's beyond the scope of this video. I don't fully understand it myself, and about 1,600 total of these were made. The only other thing I'll mention is that this cap atop of pole was the cap of a Roman freed slave, which symbolized liberty on the coins. Again, these are quite expensive, $6,000 for a very circulated one, $15,000 for lightly circulated, and $150,000 for uncirculated. A similar coin was released in 1839. There were also some dated 38 that had no stars. It's still a Gobrecht Flying Eagle dollar, and these aren't quite as expensive. These were not struck for circulation. Many were struck much later, and about 300 were made total. The value's 800 for the very circulated ones, but they increased significantly with lightly circulated at about 25,000 and uncirculated 175,000. We then move along to the 1840 to 1865 no motto seated Liberty dollar. So these had similar designs to a lot of the other coinage circulating at the time, half dollar, dime, quarter, and the seated style was the first large-scale circulating dollar. So there are a lot of scarce and rare issues on this series, with all of them being pretty tough to come by, but 1851, 52, and 58 are the major rarities here. Proof started in 1858, but there were a few scattered earlier issues from prior dates, but they really started in 1858. And I'd say it's a pretty overlooked series in coin collecting. I honestly didn't really know that they existed until recently. Not quite for the making of this video, but it was like, they're really not talked about too much, and some of them are kind of attainable in terms of their price. Very circulated ones, $800, lightly circulated, $3,500, and uncirculated, $22,500. Those are more expensive compared to the next, which is the 1866 to 1873 motto seated Liberty half dollar. So if you look back, there's nothing above the eagle. Here they've added "In God We Trust." And the values, as you can see, drop $200, very circulated, $500 for XF, and $50,000 for BU coins. The mintages on these are pretty low compared to like Morgan and Peace dollars, but they're more common than the older ones. 1870S is an extremely well-known variety with about 12 pieces known, and then Carson City in Nevada also started making coins briefly, and all of those are very scarce. The coins did not circulate too much for whatever reason, so there's not much of a difference in terms of the lowest conditions on the price. That's just kind of a little fun fact. The next that we'll talk about is the trade dollars, which were made in business strike from 1873 to 1878, and there would be proofs up until 1885. But these were made as a way to compete with the Mexican dollars in Asia. So they were strictly made for export and weighed slightly more than a standard silver dollar. And these had legal tender until 1876, until they had their status revoked. The proofs from 1884 and 1885 are extremely rare, super expensive multi-million-dollar coins. And a lot of these that have survived today have chop marks in the form of Chinese characters from merchants and bankers who were testing the coins as they came in to make sure that they were authentic. 1878 saw the Bland-Allison Act passed, and that required the government to purchase tons of silver from out west and turn it into silver dollars. So that obviously meant that there was going to be more silver dollars being made. This was the design that was chosen by Morgan. I think his name was George Morgan. I should know that, but they're one of the most popular of all American coins and iconic in American coin collecting. Some of the key dates include the Carson City coins, especially 1889 Carson City. CC is the mint mark. As you can see right here, that's where you'd find the mint mark. 1893S and 1895S are also quite rare, and they were once the mainstay of Las Vegas casinos and slot machines, but now we use chips and tokens, but that was a primary use for these guys. They stopped in 1905 and would return in 1921 just for 1 year. One important thing to note about these is that there's VAM varieties or Van Allen Malice varieties, and there are hundreds of them that occurred on the coins, which add value and interesting attributes that weren't necessarily supposed to be there. There are all sorts of minor varieties with, different aspects of the coins that are just not what the normal coin should be. So people get really into that, and it's a fun way to collect that adds a lot of depth to the series. And that's something that also continues over to the 1921 to 1935 peace dollar. There's still those VAM varieties, but these were made to commemorate the worldwide peace that followed World War I. 1921 and a few 1922 dated coins had a very high relief, but that actually caused problems in the striking and quality of the coins. So they ended up slightly redesigning that to accommodate a design that would not cause production issues, still evocative of the peace design. 1928P is the key date, and uncirculated from 1927S and 28S are really hard to come by and accelerate a lot in terms of value. I realized I forgot the Morgan value. They're generally like $17 to $20 until you get to uncirculated, which for a common one is $80, but the values on the really rare ones way exceed that. Here, the very circulated are about $15, lightly circulated around $20, while uncirculated is about $60. There are also a few special strikes that I talked about on my Peace Dollar video, but there's a lot of depth to this series as well. There were no coins made of this design from 1929 to 1933, and again from 1936 to 1963, but there were about 316,000 struck in Denver in 1964 that are supposed to have all been eventually destroyed. There are some circulating rumors that a few 1964D coins did survive, but the coins would be confiscated by the Treasury, so none have appeared on the private marketplace. But again, for all we know, they could be out there. The next coin to come about would be the Eisenhower Dollars, starting in 1971 and running through 1978. They're the first large dollars in a really long time for circulation, except this time they were clad and celebrated Dwight Eisenhower and the landing of men on the moon on the back. There were some special bicentennial designs over here made in 75 and 76 with very changed reverse to reflect independence, but still incorporate the moon. And there were also proof versions and 40% silver coins. You can tell if it's 40% silver because the edge will be completely silver colored. There won't be that copper ring. The coins often weren't struck really well, so high grades can lead to significant prices for the business or regular strikes, so it could just look really shiny and be worth a fair amount of money. There are a lot of different eras and varieties, including 3 types of 1972 that have to do with the type of earth that is used, and there's also a proof coin that's from 1976 with no S. That's extremely rare. It's one of a kind at the moment, and it was just found, so maybe there's a few more of those out there, but that's one to look for. These don't have much additional value. Maybe they're $1.20, but they're not going to be, $10 each or anything too crazy where you really want to avoid spending these. After that, we've got the Susan B. Anthony dollar, which was much smaller, came about in 1979 to 1981, and again in 1999 for a year. And these were made to meet demand using vending, arcade, and other coin-operated machines that needed coins with more value than a small 25 cents. These metallic coins could survive for about 16 years as opposed to 18 months for paper dollars, so they cut costs, and this was made to meet that demand. The reverse was similar to the Ike dollar reverse, but there were a lot of problems. A lot of people confused them with quarters, while the machines were slow to adopt or outright ignored the switch. There was a lot of public resentment actually towards these, and they stopped the mintage in 1981. They brought them back briefly in 1999 and then transitioned to the gold small dollar coins like the Sacagaweas. There was a wide rim variety in 1979 where, again, the rims were just too wide. That's worth a few extra bucks. And there were some different style estimate marks on the proof coins in 79 and 81 that, if you have the right one, could add a fair amount of money. Unfortunately, like the Ike dollars, you might have one of these, but it's probably just worth $1 unless it has one of these errors or varieties. As we come to a close, we have a coin that's pretty recognized today. It's the Sacagawea Dollar from 2000 to 2008. It's a really heavily promoted series that resulted from the Coinage Act of 1997 and had the same size and weight as a Susan B. Anthony dollar, except there was a golden color and a plain edge. Demand was really low, and the mintage dropped 99% to about 5 or 6 million a year in 2002, and now they're viewed as curiosities or even annoyances by the general public. 39 coins were struck in 22 karat gold in 1999. 12 of them survive, but all of them are held by the government. They travel into space on a space shuttle, Columbia, which was pretty neat. Some of the rarities include a Spirit Eagle variety and the Cheerios dollars, which I have videos. I don't know if they already came out or they're coming out, which are from 2000, and they range from a few hundred to a few $1,000s in value. But again, if you don't have one of these significant errors, it's probably just going to be worth $1. In 2009, they switched the design slightly, moving some of the lettering to the edge and including reverse designs that would be evocative of different contributions and life events for the Native American people. Some of the designs include the agriculture, circa 1000 AD, the Great Tree of Peace in the 1400s, and the Wampanoag Treaty of 1621. And one of the errors in these coins is that sometimes they're missing the edge lettering, so that can be a cool error to look for. The last coin is the 2007 to present presidential dollars. Any deceased president has their, they appear on these coins, and they honor all the U.S. presidents under what's called the Presidential Dollar Coin Program. There were 4 designs issued every year, with each president receiving 3 months of striking time, and they all have the same reverse design with the Statue of Liberty. Some of the notable errors include missing edge lettering, which was originally really rare, but then was found much more frequently, as well as wrong date coins, where the planchets would probably literally fall on the floor and then get minted on their edge with the wrong coin, or the wrong, lettering for a coin later. So that's kind of a neat thing. They would make the reverse and the obverse at one point and then do the edge lettering later. So that's how that happened. But again, the coins don't feature any presidents that are still living. Outside of really high grade or error coins, they're, again, just going to be worth $1. So you can spend them unless you have something that's significant. That brings us to the end. Very, very different coin from the original 1794 dollar that we made. And it's cool to see how the traces of that have kind of evolved over the years. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to get in touch with me, do so on my website, treasuretownYT.com, my Instagram, TreasureTownYT, or my Facebook, TreasureTown. I've got links in the description, and I'll see you on some of my other videos.